Hi, I'm Dr. Stephen Stosny, and welcome to Emotion Reciprocity. We tend to react in kind to the emotional states of others. Caring tends to prompt caring. Anger creates power struggles. And resentment breeds resentment. I resent that you won't do this for me. I resent that you asked me to do it. Guilt, shame, or sorrow usually will stimulate anger and resentment because there's a vulnerable emotions and we're afraid of them, and anger and resentment are protective emotional states. However, they are almost certainly going to provoke anger and resentment in other people, and that will tend to cause more guilt, shame, sorrow, anger, and it becomes an endless feedback loop. And when anger occurs in a power differential, it is more likely to invoke fear. But the fear then, also a vulnerable state, will invoke anger and resentment, and you have the feedback loop all over again. Contempt or disgust will stimulate shame, and that almost always will stimulate anger or resentment because shame is vulnerable and it needs a protective emotion. And of course, that prolongs the feedback loop. In the feedback loop of negative emotions, all parties feel like they're merely reacting to jerks. All feel like victims. All feel self-righteous. The way out of these painful feedback loops of negativity is to follow the natural motivation of prosocial emotions. For instance, guilt, shame, and sorrow will naturally stimulate self-compassion if we don't blame it on anyone and turn it into anger and resentment. And self-compassion stimulates compassion for others. And when we show compassion to others, we're more likely to get compassion from them. So compassion breeds compassion. Kindness breeds kindness. Unfortunately, emotion reciprocity isn't equal. Positive reciprocity holds roughly 70% of the time. The other 30% of the time, there's something going on inside of the other person, and they will react negatively independent of what you're doing. So their stocks went down, their team lost, they got chewed out by their boss, disrespected by their children, whatever. But negative reactivity holds close to 100% of the time. So if you are angry and resentful, you can pretty much count on getting that response back. And that is what's wrong with our country now. The polarization is really high negative reactivity. We become more extreme in reaction to each other. And that's not so much policy as the function of anger. It's for power struggles. Someone has to submit, and human beings hate to submit. So emotion reciprocity means we either react with anger or resentment or put out compassion, kindness, and basic humanity, especially to loved ones.